Hi, I'm Christine Poplau, and I am a senior manager here at Broadlume. I work in the advisory services department. Today, we're going to talk about preparing your financial statements out of the Broadlume Management System. We've covered a couple other topics earlier in the year. We covered month-end reporting and then what to do uh, in between month-end reporting and preparing your financial statements. So today we'll tackle preparing your financial statements and getting those done. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we'll talk about the soft close of the modules, reviewing the trial balance, verifying the report format maintenance, printing your financial statements, and then we're going to look at some new and exciting developments with the financials. So let's jump into soft closing those modules. When you soft close a module, it doesn't allow anyone to go back in time basically and make changes. You'll find that data here in the general ledger under account maintenance inquiry and then general ledger period date maintenance. So while we're in this screen, we can see that all of 2024 looks to be available. That means that 2023 has been closed. We still have all of period one available for people to go into and work. So if I were preparing financials, I would go ahead and soft close these. And let's just say I'm looking at period three. So I'm going to close all of these actually to period four, not to period three, because I don't want anyone to go back and change any of the data that I'm getting ready to finalize to give to my owners so that they can review the financials. So I change all of those and I save posting. Period 1 through 3 is still open. We can make general ledger entries, but we can't go through and post anything through accounts payable, run any invoices and backdate those. This is just an area to keep it safe so that those numbers don't change on you. And trust me, you don't want those numbers to change on you. That's happened to me a couple of times, and it's very frustrating to try to go back and figure out why your financials have changed. The next thing we're going to talk about is reviewing the trial balance. And when we review the trial balance, there's a number of items that you'll go through and ensure that those numbers are correct. Typically, when you're reviewing a trial balance, you're just looking at the asset and liabilities to verify that those are accurate, because if they're correct, then the income statement has to be correct. Now, doesn't mean that you ignore your revenue and expenses. It just means that typically you don't have to go through the detail on every single account to ensure that they're correct. So let's go in and look at what we would do for each of these accounts. So for cash and credit cards, we want to ensure that those are reconciled. We've done our bank recs and we've done our credit card reconciliations. This number one is just going to ensure that we have all of that data in our system. We've got all of our expenses. We know our cash is correct. The next thing we're going to do is look at our subledgers. We're going to run our as-of reports for accounts receivable, customer deposits, inventory, and accounts payable. We're also going to look at our inventory and ensure that the APR&I, or that inventory that we've received and we haven't posted an AP bill, that's either clear, meaning that there's nothing there, or that we know why we haven't posted that AP bill. And then we're going to review the general ledger balance to the valuation. We're also going to look at other assets and liabilities, and we're going to review that GL detail and ensure that the entries that are in the account are correct and the ending balance. And then finally, we're going to review our revenue and expenses, make sure that recurring items are there, like rent, that look at any accounts to see any massive changes or swings, and then just basically look for reasonableness. So let's look at a trial balance rec that I have worked on here. So you can see that I have some items here that I'm highlighting. So these green items are the items that I would want to look at to make sure that they're reconciled because these are all my bank accounts. In this case, I would look to make sure that the balance per the general ledger agrees here. For accounts receivable, you can see that I have a subledger that I ran, and I label my accounts here. So that total should agree with what is in the general ledger. So you can see what I did was I just ran my trial balance, and now I'm going to plug in the numbers and make sure that they agree. I like to keep them all in one file. It just makes things easier to have just a packet. Hey, this was the work that I did for my financial statements. The accounts in, like I said, those accounts in green are ones that I need to reconcile. The accounts with subledgers, you can see where I put the subledger balances and they all agree. So customer deposits, accounts payable, accounts receivable. The accounts in yellow are ones that I want to either look at the GL detail or have some sort of schedule that backs it up. So for claims clearing, I did a backup, and here it is. And it looks like I have some credit memos from these different vendors to add up to my $10,000 balance. Probably be easier if I actually formatted this so that you could see the actual numbers. So it looks like Shaw, we've got some items that we've received, comes up with that balance. That's great. The other reason it's important to do these things, to do these kind of reviews of your accounts, is to make sure that you don't forget to do one part. For claims clearing, I would typically see both sides of that entry occurring in the same month. You know, maybe we just did part of it because it was the end of the month and we're going to clean that up in April. But this is just a good reminder to, hey, I need to go back and do the other side of this entry. Why hasn't this cleared from here? Let's go back to that trial balance. Over here on the right side of the screen is my inventory reconciliation, where I've taken my inventory balance, my audit report, to come up with a subtotal. I don't currently have any inventory outstanding that I haven't entered my AP on. I got my valuation balance and I have a difference. Well, I need to make this adjustment. I need to adjust for the audit and for this difference. And with this difference being less than 1%, I feel comfortable just making that. It could be some rounding issues. It could be some issues with just maybe some items that didn't clear that were sold and part of the purge. So we want to go ahead and make this adjustment to tie out that inventory. Then the next thing I'm going to do after I've done all of these reconciliations or details for these orange accounts is to come down and look at my income statement and make sure that my monthly sales track the way that I would think they should. You know, we may have some slow months in the winter and it starts to pick up. I want to make sure that I have rent for all of the months and utilities for each month, and that I don't accidentally pay my rent double in one month. If, you know, you accidentally write 2 rent checks, you may want to make a journal entry to reclass that to prepaid and then reverse that entry in the following month so that your income statement shows the same expense for rent each month instead of doubling up in one month or the other. I've got utilities. My wages seem reasonable. You know, I might question, why do we just have credit card fees in one month and maybe we just get charged quarterly? Doubtful, but you know, just trying to see why this would be here. So these are the things that I do when I'm preparing the financials. I make sure that, you know, some of my expenses seem reasonable. I go through my liabilities and other assets and make sure that they are correct. When it comes to fixed assets, you can see that I didn't really highlight anything here. For the most part, fixed assets don't change. So what I normally would do is just look at the activity for the month. And if I see something for like $200 hitting computer, I may reclass that to an expense, because typically anything under, at a minimum $500 is expensed. You would want to make sure and set a capitalization policy so that you have those items set that anything spent under a certain dollar amount can automatically be expensed. So that's the issue with the fixed assets. Some people wait until the end of the year to post appreciation from their accountants. Others will post an estimate each month. That's just up to you and what you want your financial statements to look like. Now we've made sure that our trial balance is accurate. Now we want to move on to printing our financial statements. But before we go in and print our financial statements, I want to emphasize how important it is to go into the report format maintenance. That is located in the general ledger under item 6 currently, and it's report format maintenance. This is something that you typically don't need to get into, and maybe you don't need to do it each month, but it's a good thing just to double check. What we would have here is the ability to verify GL accounts. So if I go into that function, verify GL accounts, I can see that I have a lot of accounts that I must have added this month that need to be mapped to the correct line in the financial statement. So any assets and liabilities and equity, I would want to make sure that those are mapped to a balance sheet account. And the revenue and expense would need to go to the income statement. Okay, so I need to map these. What I typically do is I would print those to Excel and then map them to the correct line. So I have inventory 1700.100 that I need to map. So as I go into the balance sheet and I find my inventory line, I can go in and map those missing ones. So here I would want to add that account. Here, this is an invalid account, so I could delete that. And then I can go back in and do the 1700 too. So I have my inventory now mapped correctly, so my balance sheet will reflect that. What I suggest, so that this doesn't happen where you don't have anything, is when you do add a new account, you immediately go into the report format maintenance and add that account. But before you start printing financials, I just always suggest going in and making sure that everything is mapped. Now, if you have branch financials, my suggestion in report format maintenance is, let's say this is these two are branches. We've got the Brandon branch and the Fund branch. We would want to make sure that we do the income statement first, the consolidated or combined income statement, and then go into the branches and add them. That's just my suggestion, just to make sure that we do have those financials mapped correctly. Okay, so the next thing is actually printing those financials. So there is one location where the financials are. It's in general ledger reports. We have the income statement and the balance sheet. The income statement, you've got two options actually, and I'm going to just do print to screen here. But you have the ability to just print a financial statement here, which will give us basically a 5-column financial statement. And it's going to do comparison of current year to prior year. These are really helpful to make sure that things are being accounted for properly. It allows owners to see trends. We also have the ability to do a print annual income statement, and I really like to use this. What this allows me to see is the financial statements by month. So if I print these to Excel, I can see the financial statements for each month with my sales, my cost of goods sold, and then the other items. I think these are really helpful to look at, especially as you're preparing them, to make sure that you have accounted for everything correctly and that each month has those recurring type of expenses. The next report is the balance sheet. It's located here, and you can print this to Excel as well. And the balance sheet is just going to be for a certain date, and in this case, it's always going to be period end or month end. So when I run the balance sheet, I am just saying these are what my assets and liabilities are as of this date. So you could say period one, and then you'd want to change that date to 1/31, and you can just print that. Let's go ahead and do that. And then here is what that's going to look like if you drop it into Excel. So you have to do a little bit of formatting to make it a little bit prettier. But this is where you would be printing your financial statements that you would either make as a part of a packet, or you could print them to PDF and then send them to whatever users you would have that would want to review those. Finally, I've got some really new and exciting developments. I know most people probably don't think that accounting is that exciting, but I sure do. So what we will have soon is the ability to print a new and updated financials, and we're going to have drill down financials. So I'd like to show you those. Now, they are not currently out. We are hoping that they will be out by the end of August or beginning of September. So let's jump in and look at what those will look like. And what we will have is you will see a new button that will say generate report. So I'm in the balance sheet and I just want to see period 10 balance sheet. I say generate the report. It gives me this format, and I can double click and I can see all of the entries to accounts receivable. I do have the ability to change the date here. So I'm just looking at a certain time period on that balance sheet, but it's just like running that general ledger detail where you can see all the ins and outs for the account. You can see the source, which would be R would be accounts receivable, O would be your sales journal or your invoice register, C would be cash receipts. So you can see all of that detail that you want to see to come up with those balances. We also, when we print these, this is what the new balance sheet is going to look like. We are still working on these, trying to make sure that the formatting is correct, but you can see it's a much more modern look. Things are highlighted, the different lines, so it's easier to track those across. This is just really exciting to me that we've got a more updated financial statement for you. We also have that for the income statement, where you can see it's just a lot easier to read. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, we are very excited about these. And then the same thing you can do in your income statement as what I just did in the balance sheet is I can go in and I can look here at like period 10, and I can pick the income statement I want to look at. And then I see, oh, wow, it's telling me that I have updates pending and I need to go run my journals, my sales journal and my general ledger to update those numbers. But for right now, let's just go ahead and generate those so you can see them. And if I double click in here for the cost of labor, it's going to give me all of those entries for period 10. So this is just really neat that we've got this ability now. It's been a requested item. So this is our phase 1. Phase 2 will be coming out soon as well, but we are still working on that. So just stay tuned for phase 1. I think it's really exciting. if you have any questions on running your financials or preparing them, don't hesitate to contact us at bmssupport@broadlume